Okay, all right. Cool. So Drone, I had to mute all joinees who joined in. Perhaps I'll get started. So, hi everyone. Thanks for making the time out to join PM School Star Session. Really appreciate it. I know it's a little late for folks who are joining in from India. Just a roundup of what PM School is and what the Star Session stand for. So, Star Session primarily is a flagship, I would say, talk by industry experts in the product management domain who are here to share wisdom, from their own lives and work experiences from the past. So that folks like you who are either a product managers already or who want to be in the product management domain have strong takeaways from the session itself. And just a couple of lines description for PM School. So PM School is probably Asia's largest product community today. So we help early stage product enthusiasts, product management enthusiasts, and PMs to upskill themselves to become better product managers and to land your first product dream job, right? And we do it by having a focused 8-week program which just got started last week, a couple of weeks ago. And if you're interested, Priya is going to drop you a mail with all the details. You can reach out to us for any questions whatsoever. We'd be happy to answer them. So with that, I hand it over to Dron, who is our star speaker today. And Dron comes with, is quite a seasoned product veteran with having over 10 years of experience working across multiple international companies and products. He's going to be sharing his wisdom on primarily on frameworks, product strategy, frameworks and fundamentals around it. I hand it over to Dron to get things started. Dron,
thank you.
We're
super
so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kushal, for all those kind words, and of course, and having me here. It's a pleasure. Certainly, early morning here, up in Toronto. So for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm based out of Toronto here in Canada, and good to see some familiar faces as well here. Kushal, you're there, but I also just saw Robert coming in. Hi, Robert. So nice to see you. Lionel. Great to see you guys as well. This is very nice. And hi to everyone who is joining in from India. I know this is late evening, so I really appreciate taking out some time there. So for the session today, I think before we dive into it, just a little bit of a brief context of what we are going to do. I think what we are going to start with is definitely understand a little more about product strategy and frameworks. As Kushal really mentioned, I'd like to maybe have that conversation for the first 40 minutes or so, and then really open up the space over the last 15 minutes or so for just an AMA, wherein, of course, I think certainly, Shubham, I would love to have anyone on the video in case they would want to. So please go ahead. Yes. But yes, I think that's how we'd be going. But before I just dive into it, a couple of quick lines, I think, about me, just as an introduction. So I've been into the PM space for a little over a decade now. And just in terms of quality experience, end-to-end product management cycle, so whether be it with some large enterprise companies like Walmart and Staples, I've seen a lot of, I guess, how product management as a function really revolves around in large settings and enterprise settings on one side. On the other side, I've also been a part of, I think, a lot of startups, having also co-founded one of them on my own, and then being part of startups at various stages. So how does a C-series or a D-series startup really differ from say a seed series startup, and so on and so forth. So and I think product management phenomenally is such a beautiful domain that regardless of the stage of the company, there are always going to be certain fundamentals that can be applied across the life cycle. And that's what really becomes the, I guess, foundation of today's conversation. So when I'm actually looking at product strategy, I think I look at it more from all the experience that I've gained and how can all that be fundamentally, I guess, boiled down to very simple, straightforward, I guess, foundational things that you can all take away, keep in mind, and try to apply that when you're thinking about product strategy as such. With that, I would also say, in case any one of you has a question in between, I would encourage all of you to just post it in the chat. I will try my best to get to each one of those questions at the end of the session. And if by any chance we're going longer, I'll try to also see if there could be certain areas of the sections which we may or may not need to cover. Great. So let me start by probably sharing the screen and being able to, I think, share a quick presentation as well that I've prepared. Are you guys able to see the PDF doc?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thanks, Priya. So let me just hide the floating controls. They're always a little bit of a trouble. Perfect. So as I just said, that just a quick agenda. First half, more on the presentation. Second half, really more of an open house setting. Diving right in. And I think starting with the product strategy fundamentals, this is how I think I try to look at product strategy as such. So product strategy, one of the best guys I think I try to follow, who still stands true, I think, on his strategy statement, regardless of all the changes that have happened, is more around strategies is a distinctive position you seek to occupy in your market and the advantages on which you will compete. So this is how Michael Porter puts it. And Michael Porter, regardless of, I think, whether you are in tech, whether you are in manufacturing or CPG or any other domain, I think the statement stands true phenomenally well across all, which is why the statement is so great. And I think how I look at strategy is like in simpler, I think, words. It's more about that it's always a response to a challenge, a problem, or an opportunity. So without a clear sense of any of this, you really do not have a very clear idea where you're trying to get to. Are you getting there faster or not? And what is the most efficient way of getting there? Hence, it's extremely important to put it out loud. I think another way of just looking at it in one single term is like, okay, what is strategy? And I think it's a choice that as a group or as a leader you make, so that it gives a lot more clarity to where should you be headed and gives you that distinctive position. And I think that's very important, right? Two very, very clear components that start standing out as we start talking about, I think, strategy is always going to be, okay, so what's a good strategy and what's a bad strategy? A lot of time, I think as product professionals or product managers, early stage product managers, sometimes even as senior PM product managers, it really depends upon how is the kind of lay of land or the structure or the working philosophy within your own companies. There tends to be a thought that operational efficiency can also lead to good product strategy, which I'm not personally a huge fan of. So it's almost like that, okay, that's how you differentiate a bad product strategy to a good product strategy. A good product strategy will always and always be defined on value propositions. Like, what would be your differentiating value props, and what would be certain trade-offs that you are ready to make, as in, like, what are going to be the definites no, so that you can stay focused on the things that you believe will get you to where you want to. Right. And I think a great way to sometimes think about all of this is in terms of examples. A more real life example about all of this is going to be, let's say that when any one of you is trying to go anywhere, very, very simple, practical example is going to be that you come out, you get into the car, and then you set up a destination in Google Maps, and then it shows you the route or the most optimal route to get to that destination. And that's why it's very, very important to know where you are going to get to and what will then get you there, rather than you start meandering and going without a very clear idea of where do you want to get to, right? So it's very, very important. It's a very simple way of saying that, okay, this is exactly how sometimes product strategy has to work. One of the beautiful examples that I've seen, I think within, let's say, for example, the fintech space, where you have three of the largest players like Stripe, PayPal, or Square as such, all three in the same domain, but they've kind of like differentiated their individual, I would say, approaches and the kind of customers and the market that they're going to play in, which kind of like attributes to why each one of them is very successful in their own ways, right? So just taking a little bit of spending maybe a couple minutes to try and understand the differences here. So Stripe, what does Stripe do? Stripe really plays very well within the online space. It has a developer-centric approach that the tool is built on. Of course, focuses a little more specifically on subscription management and marketplace solutions. And I think it has really been able to establish itself very well within that particular space. But then once you start thinking about Square, I think it has really thought a lot more about the omni-channel experience in terms of getting payments. So it's almost like an all-in-one solution, has a point of sale hardware and software, has payroll services, small business loans. So more comprehensive solutions for small businesses. That's how really Square identifies itself, right? Focuses equally well on in-person transactions, very different to that of Stripe. Does not really focus on in-person transactions or physical transactions, right? And then you come to PayPal, I think the big daddy of between the three of all, right? Someone which has very differentiated, I think initially they had gained a lot of popularity in terms of online and offline payment platform that it had, but then slowly and slowly it also started differentiating itself with a lot of customer facing services that it started launching. So whether it's the PayPal.me, whether it was getting into the peer-to-peer payment app space altogether. But that's how PayPal has started differentiating it itself and carving out its own space within the fintech industry away from what Stripe or Square might be doing. So just a very, very clear way of saying that, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do. A Stripe does not want to get into, let's say, a point of sales sort of a structure altogether, or to compete in that space. And that is what gives it very clear advantage and focus to grow in one particular vertical or with a differentiated customer group altogether. Jumping on quickly, I think on to the next one, more about product strategy. And I think the moment you're thinking about product strategy again, another way of very well thinking about it is that it describes who your customers should be. So that's where the first component of, let's say, a product strategy loop comes in. Who's your target customer? How does, or I see what would be your business goals, and how do your customers help you get to your business goals? And through the problems that you really want to focus on. I always also tend to look at product strategy in the form of, I think, not in the form of a linear problem, but more in the form of a loop. Because regardless of, I think, how we may want to look at product strategy, I believe that it's dynamic. It stays true for a period of good 3 to 5 years. And I think that's always a sweeter spot, depending on the kind of company. Maybe sometimes in very early stage startups, you could also be looking at a couple of years, or maybe a little lesser than that. So 18 months to 24 months to define how you're going to define your product strategy and stick to it. And then always review it to see whether the paradigm has changed. There have been external changes or internal changes that need you to redefine it, and probably set different strategies and goals for your own self and the team as well. So always there, but that does mean that it needs to be a lot more iterative as a process and not just linear. Maybe at one point of time in the mid 1900s or maybe even 2000s, a longer product strategy did exist. But I think especially within the field of technology, it's very critical to be a little more, I think, thoughtful and keep revisiting it in terms of the loop, getting all the learnings as well that you might be to I guess act as a feedback into how you're looking at product strategy as you go along. Now, coming to, I think, the vision as such. So a few components that really are very, very important as far as product strategy is concerned is always going to be, okay, what's the vision? What's the mission? You would have heard all of these words, of course. So how do they really impact the strategy and how does it go? So if you look at a small, I could say, line diagram that you see on the slide at this point of time, bottom right, is that, okay, the right way of thinking about it is that the vision, which is really starting with the company vision, you drive a product vision so that the alignment is true. And then you use this product vision to define a product strategy. A product strategy, again, if you would see, should be broad-based by 4 critical factors, in my view. It should definitely take care of the customers. It should take care of the business, the competitors, and also the macroeconomic space. And I think once you're looking at it in a holistic manner, you would always be able to define strategies that are much better and more grounded and very realistic. And I think once you have defined all of that, it kind of like leads to a roadmap, right? And then we are going to dive much deeper into each one of these components as we go along in the next few slides. But then I think before jumping onto the next slide, I think what I would like to spend a little more time is trying to understand that if we are talking about, let's say, a vision, what really are the 4 or 5 most critical components of a vision when you're thinking about it from a product perspective? I think for me, what I've really thought is that the vision needs to be a little bold. Or you might be able to also say that lofty or forward-looking. But I think as you start thinking about making a bold vision, you also have to be aware of the fact that the vision cannot be just bold, but unrealistic. So you also have to think about that it has to be bold and it has to sound or at least look realistic or attainable. And that is the beauty of it. It should, when you're thinking about vision, another thing that I encourage all product professionals to think about, especially junior or mid career ones, is when you're thinking about vision, do not think about constraints. So try to have it, I guess, devoid of any limitations as such, if you can, and make it quite grounded and customer centric. It's extremely important to have a larger goal for the business. And sometimes the best goals for businesses that I've always seen work and work very well are tying it up with the customers and not really business metrics. Because eventually, if you get it right for the customers, the business metrics are always going to be a byproduct of whatever you want to achieve. And that's why it always goes back to the same loop. As I said, that, okay, what is the problem that you want to focus upon? Who is the target group? And does it make sense? Because can it give us and take us where we want to achieve our business goals? So just a very coherent view of how you start looking at the vision and how it starts tying into the product strategy. Of course, there are smaller components that it needs to be motivating and inspirational. It should definitely be, I think, aligned with the company's culture and core values, because I believe that's your opportunity to enable you to really harness all of it and use it to inspire your people to also do good work, or team members to do a lot of good work, right? Jumping on quickly, and I think we've been speaking about product vision a little more. So, of course, the components come in, but as a definition, it's really a clear articulation of the market opportunity and the high-level features, and or just the organizational capability that will help you realize the opportunity at hand. So when do you usually use a product vision? You primarily use it to not just drive alignment with stakeholders. You also sometimes need to use it to consolidate a lot of fuzzy ramblings that you're now hearing from the stakeholders. So always use it to power that particular thing. If you have, let's say, an idea of a problem that you're trying to solve in terms of a product or a service, and you would like to progress about it, try to define a vision around it. Or if you need to compare possible initiatives, so a lot of prioritization that you need to do, vision or product vision also helps you immensely in trying to do that as well. It will also, of course, allow you, and always, once you have set up this vision, feel free to use it as one of the most important levers to get your buy-ins from the executives and sponsors. And I think the process itself not just gives you a lot more clarity, but you're slowly able to define it, which clears away so many more challenges that you might face when you get down to execution. And hence, establishing a good product vision gives you so many more advantages that you're not able to ascertain later on when you get to execution. Hence, getting it upfront, you're able to not just buy in, you're also able to use it as an influence tool with other stakeholders. So you might have different stakeholders, especially in larger organizations, even at startups. You might need to use it for a lot of external based stakeholders as well, where you need to create influence, sometimes with even advisory boards, board of directors, investors. It's a great tool to start with, and hence a product vision becomes very critical. Moving on faster, and I think this is just looking at, I think, giving a lot more handful information about how do you really create a product vision. I try to follow a very, very simple template like this for a lot of my team members. And I try to tell them that try to use this and try to come up with something that you believe can fit here. It's a good starting point. I wouldn't say that there aren't better templates available or anything, but at least to start with, I've seen that this has really been helpful with a lot of PMs that I've mentored or trained under myself. That really helps. So let's say using the same, we look at something for Netflix, for example. So for millennials who want an on-demand personalized entertainment system, Netflix is an online subscription TV service that works seamlessly. Unlike HBO or Hulu, Netflix releases original content for binge watching. And I think that kind of like lays out that, okay, who is going to be the customer? I would say the target customer. What is the need that this will solve for that target customer? How will it differentiate itself? And what is the key benefit or the value proposition? And also taking a very quick snipe at understanding how the competition is different or how this is different from the competition. Hence, kind of like very succinctly lays out in a couple of lines what you're trying to do. So it gives you some of those like no constraints being talked here again. It is forward looking because it needs to have personalized on demand entertainment, right? And then you're also looking at how it is different from the competition. It's still very customer centric. It's not that this is just focused on what Netflix wants to go, let's say, in terms of revenues. So yes, business goals are important, but they need to be tied as a leading metric. The lagging metric is always, I think, more customer centric, and I think it's always more helpful. Moving further, just in the interest of time, probably I'll, for some reason. Oops. Yeah, got it. Perfect. So, and I think this is where vision and product management starts coming in. And I think Cole Mercer takes like a very prominent person, and how he really defines it is that the real job of a product manager is to paint a vivid and exciting vision for the team, to give some of these smart people the autonomy to do their job, which they're hired for. And I think it's a very, very important piece, which has been, I guess, mentioned here, is a lot of time I have seen in a lot of, I guess, PMs that I have mentored or I've spoken to, I've sometimes felt that they try to control a lot of things, but sometimes you have to understand that one of your biggest power has to be in the space where you can not just define this vision, but give the autonomy and trust your people to collaborate very well into delivering what you really want them to deliver. And I think I know sometimes it can sound scary to start with, but I can tell you from my own personal experience also, I was someone who was, of course, trying to control a lot of things, just trying to be the best in terms of, okay, defining a problem, really the kind of solutions that could be working out, okay, getting to the subtask, writing stories, just the minutest, most detail as well. And then I guess taking the headache of getting into a sprint as well, grooming it very well, very closely. And I think I was just taking sometimes a lot more upon me. And I think as I transitioned and grew in my career, I slowly and slowly started realizing that the more I sometimes collaborate and trust the, I guess, values and I think everything that each one of my team members also sometimes brings, I have started becoming not just great at my role, but I've also started giving out better, I would say, quality products. I've started to sometimes enhance and understand and then create groundbreaking solutions as well. So that's the power. And I think that's when I realized that a product manager job, yes, it's important to do a lot of those why and think about that, but it's also extremely important, okay, that strategically, how can you be a more strategic oriented PM than just being a very execution oriented PM, and the value that this brings. So if you think about, I think in terms of the global vision, as I said, it is the one that really drives the product vision, which should in turn be very well aligned with the kind of users that you want to target, what is the value prop, which defines the goals, which then defines the initiatives, and then features, epics, stories, subtasks. The moment you have all of these aligned, I think it's way more easier. And as a part of, I think, a clear giveaway, what I'm also going to do is at the end of this, as an appendix, I have a clear, I would say, template as such, which every one of you can possibly take away and try to use that to get help to not just start doing this, but also being able to develop that. I'll probably skip it in the interest of time, and I just realized that I'm maybe going a little more slower. So some real life examples of how vision has been spaced, but SpaceX has done some phenomenal job at this. So would really send this across and would love for you guys to maybe read a little more about how they have really defined it. Um, um, of course, some of the key questions that you guys believe that can be taken away to take some help is going to be that, okay, what is the problem that you're solving? Whom are you selling to? The size of the market, so as to understand the impact, the competition, value proposition. How are you different? And how are you solving it different? Or how are you looking at the problem in a different way? So very, very important to have a clear understanding of the differentiation strategy. And it could be various things. It could be about, okay, how are you going to acquire, retain, or grow customers? Each one of those strategies could be very different, which could give you those differentiation. So whether it's about monetization, pricing, but all of this is important and great. What I see a lot of times is people or product professionals miss that how are you actually going to measure the success. It's extremely important as well, because this is the final piece that ties into, I think, as I said, the loop, right? Because you're able to measure it, you're always able to at least take a lot of learnings out of what you are doing to feed into that loop, into helping you, I guess, reassess the product strategy at the end of the tenure, or probably just continuously as well, especially as a product leader. And slowly it just becomes better and develop your instincts. That being said, I think I'd initially planned an activity, but I would encourage each one of you to probably take this back and try to use the above template to start driving, I think, and writing a product vision. For example, say LinkedIn. And the second example I would love for any one of you is probably trying to use it and do it for Duolingo. So it's more of a practical exercise, but feel free to take it back and then try your hands at it. If you guys feel that you want me to review, always feel free to also reach out to me on my email. I'm more than happy to, or LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to look at those messages and review it and provide some feedback if I can. Right. And I think before I jump into the second section, I'd probably jump a little further ahead in the appendix to just give you a view of how you can use some of the other templates also to drive starting from global vision and get it down, I think, up to the tasks and or the roadmap as such, and how can you align them very well. So just jumping in, I think one of the best product strategy canvases that I've seen, which is simple enough, a great starting point, is something that Roman Pichler came up with. I've seen many as them, and they start getting complicated in this. But in real life, I think something which is just as simple as this really helps to start putting in all your thoughts together and have it as a starting point, whether it is alone, whether it is with your, I guess, closest triad, or I would say, or if you have it with some of the key stakeholders that you're working with. It's always very helpful to start with this as a starting point. But once you have had a starting point, I think it's about thinking about writing the vision in the template that I had shared. Sometimes a vision is usually followed by a mission. If you have a company mission, you should try to bring it in and try to see if you can lead with it. But if you don't have it, it's not always important as well, right? Get to the users, define their user groups. What are their needs? List them down very clearly and in just these many words. Also understand and think about what could be the differentiating factors, which can give you those moats. So I 100% recommend you to usually look at some of the more popular ones, like do I differentiate in form of, say, network effects, scale of economies, costs, counter positioning, resources, branding, or just the process power. These are some very standard ones, and you could always have subcategories in each one of these, but they would usually give you a very good assessment against your competition also, how you differentiate and where you differentiate. And we're going to come to it in the second section as well. Then you can think about, I think, what are the value props or unfair advantages that you get? Some of the initiatives are now driven from all of the things that you've done till now. So you drive the initiatives, you give them descriptions, and then you align a KPI and understand how you're going to measure the impact with the business on the initiatives that you're trying to plan, which kind of like flows into the roadmap. What I usually see is a lot of times, I think people jump directly from vision onto roadmaps and really miss the groundedness and the rigor that is needed to do this. And I think as each one of you, I think, moves deeper into your product career, doing these hard yards initially in your career really sets you up very well, because then it kind of like becomes a second nature. So back of the thing, and you really become very good at it. So it starts giving you those clarifying questions, starts understanding, you develop a very good product sense slowly and slowly when you're thinking about product as you move into senior positions, and it's really helpful. Going back again, and sorry for the back and forth, but what I'll do is I'll try to be very, very brief with this particular section as such, just in the interest of time, because I really do want to give the last 15 minutes for a more open discussion. I've also not been able to take any questions in between, which is very, very unlike me, because I really love to have a lot more interactive sessions rather than this. But yeah, so what can be some of the frameworks that you could start using? And I will, before diving into the frameworks, I think strategy formulation as such also has two very distinct segments or categories as such. One is really defining the problem. And why I recommend looking at this piece independently is because I believe that if you've done this particular piece right, you've almost solved 50% of the problem. So the majority of the problem is already solved if you have identified the right problem. So a right problem is identified with the right target segment. You don't just understand the customer's intrinsic need, but you also understand what is the key benefit that it is going to drive. How is it going to give you an edge against your competition? And what is going to be the differentiating factor that you can harp upon to really lead the growth and longevity as far as this particular problem is concerned. And that gives you the reasoning why you really want to solve this problem, right? Once this is done, aligned well, then comes, I think, the more important part around, or I would say, in my view, I think it's more just regular work around the clear definition and execution. By no means this is less important than the problem definition, but I think as a product person, you are the only one who is defining the problem rightly or really identifying this. So if you do that well, I think the definition and the execution, you always have a lot more help. So you can always collaborate very well and get those things. So identifying the stakeholders, gather the right requirements, communicate very well, and then just figure out how to execute and iterate till you solve the problem. And always keep, I guess, not just building out hypotheses, but also testing out hypotheses. So a good way of sometimes looking at helping you formulate a strategy. I've been a huge fan of the blue ocean and the red ocean strategy. And I think this is still coming up very high level, right? Wherein you are able to define very clearly that, okay, where do my blue ocean, I guess, lies? And it's very important to also understand that it's not just about finding a different market space altogether. Within even the same market space, if you dive deeper, you might be able to see that there are spaces which you would want, which have not been met, or there are customer needs which have not been met. And once you identify those, it makes your job much more easier to then not just define and execute it. So a good example to take here is going to be, let's say, Airbnb. I think it's needless to say that I would say the hotel industry is not a red ocean, or was not a red ocean when Airbnb came in. But I think within the hotel industry itself, what it did really well was to identify, okay, what is it trying to reduce? What is it trying to create? What will it eliminate, and what will it raise? So it had a very, very clear understanding of how it is going to, I guess, what are the trade-offs and what it is going to say no to. And this is what really defined and helped them do it. So if you see the graphs here, this is where the hotel industry is. And if you see the various other bullet points, this is where the Airbnb line is. What you start seeing very closely is that for a lot of factors, like, I'm sorry, this is pretty small. My apologies for it being a little illegible here. But yes, so like certain factors like sense of belonging, the host and the guest interaction, right? So it kind of like started finding out that this is really the sweetest spot where the difference is the maximum compared to some of the experience that a hotel industry is able to not give, but that is an open gap that they would like to exploit. And that is how it started, I guess, just getting clearly visible that this is where they would want to focus first. And hence they went ahead and started creating, I guess, solutions that would help them solve problems around all of the factors that are lying here. They did not go to the raise where it would not give them that higher differentiation factor, but they would start thinking about creating these differentiation factor. So I've seen that applying a blue ocean or red ocean strategy really helps us to have that clear differentiation, which gives us the understanding that, okay, where does the biggest bang for my efforts lie, and where should I actually start focusing on first? So this is a great exercise. And I think, again, as an example, I had included maybe a working exercise. I would again say, take this back, do it. And if you guys want to share it, feel free to share it. And I'm more than happy to, I think, evaluate it and I think provide some feedback if I can. Just over the last couple of minutes, I think what I'll probably do is run very, very quickly through some of the other formats or frameworks that always help. I think just the SWOT analysis as such is really helpful. To understand the macro space, I recommend a lot of people, especially at the start of the year or the end of the year, when you're looking at year-long strategy, think about looking at 4 to 5 forces. When you're looking at, again, the macroeconomic pestle analysis really helps. And when you're looking at competitive analysis, the VRIO analysis also really helps. I would probably like to pause here and I think open up the stage for any questions, if I can, and just look at the sessions, or if you guys have any specific one, feel free to also raise your hand. I'm more than happy to take turns and get to each one of your questions. But yes, looking at, I think, a couple of questions that came in from Gerta. Okay, what are some effective approaches or best practices on defining the success criteria? Great. So, Gerta, I think in some of the most fundamental effective approaches or best practices, there are frameworks. I think a couple of them that have really been very popular. And although I think it takes time to get accustomed to that, but then if you start thinking about, I think the AA, RRR, I guess the framework which is more stationed around the acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and I would say just the recurrence. I think that's very, very helpful if you want to use AARRR sort of a framework. I'm more than happy to maybe share a couple of links, or otherwise just feel free to take a look. It's very easily available. I think there is another one, depending on the kind of industry that you're coming from. You could also try and take a look at another framework called the HEART framework, which was made popular by Google. They use it extensively to look at how you could define success criteria and success metrics. So maybe take a look at them. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or this, and I'm more than happy to maybe take a look there. Saurabh, your question, how can I develop a product portfolio to stand out when applying for the jobs? Fantastic question. What I've usually seen and I recommend is to look for, I think, opportunities to do some work. So whether it can be a side project that you can take up, or you can, there are a lot of, I think, courses as well, which are a lot more, I would say, boot camp focused as well. Try to look for some things like them as well, so that you can maybe get paired up. That gives you an opportunity to work on a product and really create a product as well. It just does not gives you a confidence, but also gives you a chance to really have your own product portfolio. And once you actually go through that journey, whether it is 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and there can be many more, feel free to maybe reach out, and I'm more than happy to share a couple of them that I know of, so that you can take a look. I'm sure PM School also definitely has something like it, so they will also be able to guide. So I'll encourage you to look at that as well. But I think that would be really helpful. If you're looking for something else, I think in terms of side projects and everything, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to, I think, share a couple of other ones which are not about product management, but just places where you can find, let's say, engineers or designers who are also looking out for building certain side projects. So that may also be very helpful into helping you develop a product portfolio. Question from Kiran: what book do you suggest to read and learn about product management? I think my question, or a quick clarifying question there could be, Kiran, is to understand at what level do you want to understand this? Because there are various books, but they can be very different based on the stage of product management career that you are. So if you're still here, maybe if you could just unmute and very quickly share which stage. Yeah, I think she's not here as such, but no problem. So I'll just assume, and if it's an assumption that it's just looking at when you're starting out, I certainly recommend everyone to look at or read a book called Inspired by Marty Kagan. I think that particular book is an MBA in product management in itself. And I think as you go through it, a very, very sound foundational book to really start with. I think there are other books I'm more than happy to recommend, but to start with, I think that one single book for product management really helps. There are going to be various facets of product management, and there can be various books that can help you, I think, really understand. So whether it is lean product management, there could be other books around it. How you start thinking, there could be books about it from Neer or Dan Olson. But then if any one of you also has any other questions, yes, Shreyas, Inspired by Marty Kagan. That's really the book. Yeah, you can find an ebook or always have a copy. I always keep that copy. And I think there are other series of books also that he came with, but I would always say start with Inspired. Everything else is a little further ahead. And I think as you grow in your career, you would also be able to, I think, should be able to take a look at something like an Empowered or some of the other books that he writes, and follow his blogs. I think he's he's a standout product coach out there. And so always great to follow him. 7 minutes left. So quickly getting product strategy. Robert, yes, more than happy to share a couple of other ones. I know you may connected there, but I think there's a book by Dan Olson. I'm just slipping, the name is just slipping out of my mind, but I'm more than happy to just recollect it and share it on Slack, maybe. And that would be really helpful. For product strategy, I also believe that just reading the content that Lenny works on is extremely helpful. It is, regardless of just the book, I think his is amazing. Another book on product strategy could also be Empowered. So I think that's by Marty Kagan. Again, a much more deeper level of understanding, not just on product strategy, but how product teams should really be working. I think it's a really good book to also lay your hands on and dig into. Shrishti, is there a list of important, useful frameworks that are 100%, Shrishti? There are, but then I would also sometimes suggest, and this question has come to me a lot of times, that, okay, are frameworks important? Which are the ones that exist? I am of a very I would say, not so popular belief that yes, frameworks are important and useful, but see, when you are actually working in a real life product management role, you would understand that it's good to have that understanding because it helps you give structure to your own thoughts. But slowly and slowly, it is not something that you will just be able to take up and start applying. So for example, let's take about prioritization frameworks. And there are many of them. You think about a Kano model and effort versus estimation, or RICE models, and all of them exist. And not to say that they are not useful. They are useful. But what is more important is to understand how are they helping you deduce what you really want to do. A lot of times you will also be able to say that it's not that you will just be able to take up one particular framework and just apply it. They all have their, I would say, merits and demerits. It's important to understand how one is fitting and why should one be used or not be used, and to what extent should it be used when you're thinking about, let's say in this example, hypothetically speaking, only about prioritization. I've seen the same RICE model being applied very, I would say, incorrectly. And because it has so many assumptions laden in it, I've sometimes seen that it doesn't. The common sense is way better than all of this. So when you're looking at, I think if you have the right understanding of your target groups, your impact values, good business cases, and how you are really having those differentiations or value props really laid out and tying into how this is really going to add, I would say, to the business metrics, or what really value is it going to give, I think that is all very helpful. Great. Product manager is supposed to be updated with latest. This is how do you keep yourself updated? What resources? Great question, Shrishti. Akash. I would say always read, meet, connect. I think even beyond my day-to-day jobs, this is a continuous aspect. So I think my reading has also evolved as I've grown in my career. So there are a lot of great content creators as well, not just books. They are definitely helpful, but content from, I guess, Arthur, Lenny, Elna, a lot of these great influencers. I'm more than happy to maybe share the top 10 or the top 20 people that you could always follow, I think, for their product thought leadership, even on execution. You have to understand what part of product management do you want to learn a little more about and what stage, and then you're definitely always going to be able to find people. Keep doing courses. I think I'm a huge fan of sometimes keeping ahead of trends rather than behind trends. So I think they help. And various ways, smaller courses, larger courses, even LinkedIn's or the Coursera's of the world would really be helpful as well. Shreyas, thank you. Can we access 100%? I will share the presentation from my side to PM School, and then Nitin, I guess they should be able to share it with the attendees here. Real recording will be live soon. Fantastic. Yes, I think I've completed all of the questions at least. Kushal or Priyal, over to you guys.
Thanks, Dron. This is quite an illuminating session, no doubt. That shows by the number of questions which we've received today. And a lot of our attendees are actually dialing in live from LinkedIn. So most of a bulk of our people who are watching this session are from LinkedIn right now. Once again, I think it's been a great session, folks. We can do like a question or two in case you have them. I'm going to like give a few more minutes for Dron to answer any questions you might have. If you do not get a question in the next minute, maybe we can end today's session.
Perfect.
Cool. I think we are good. Dron, once again, thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you with us at PM School. Folks, I'm pretty sure you have great takeaways. Please do sign up for the next STAR session, which keeps happening every Wednesdays or Thursdays every week. If your Priya is going to like send out an email with all the details talking about the PM School live cohort program as well. So you can ask questions back to us on email or reach out to us directly on LinkedIn or on the website. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Dron, thanks again for sharing your time and wisdom today. Totally enjoyed the talk. It was quite refreshing for me as well. And I'm pretty sure others have stronger takeaways.
No, thanks for having me here. Really special, and thanks everyone else who took out time to join. I hope that I was able to. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Yes.
Thank you, Dron. Thanks everyone. Yep. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.